This video I want to dedicate to the quality of ABA therapy that your child may be receiving or about to receive. So that will be helpful for parents who are looking for services or just starting up services, or even to those who already received this therapy, because I will be addressing some of the things that you may want to look at, and I will share my experience. Now, I don't deal with ABA companies anymore. I canceled these services 2 years ago because my company deteriorated within the 5 years, and I have to carry it over, and I'm doing ABA myself now because we started with somewhat good therapy, ended up that I was training their own techs for free. So I already put out video for what the ABA therapy. That was funny. It was like there was no ABA there, obviously. And you have to understand one thing. That's what I see from other families. They just think that ABA more likely like respite hours or babysitting services. No, this is a medical therapy, science-based, and it's provided by supposedly like professionals, and medical insurances pay for it. That's why it's not babysitting services. That your children have to receive that, and they have to learn new skills. So if they don't learn anything, it's not about ABA. It's actually about the people that provide and call it ABA, right? So again, I uploaded a couple of videos how to choose company and ABA, whatnot, but this one here, I want you to get your attention to look for signs, look for things in what kind of questions you want to ask, and that will help you to determine if your child actually indeed gets a quality ABA therapy. Okay, so I already talked about choosing the company, ABA company, and you want to go with a smaller company or privately owned company, because that alone is a quality. Okay, first you want to ask them is a cancellation policy. This is very important because when the tech cancels, quite often what do? Well, your child is losing time, and the time is very critical. You cannot go put it back in reverse. So that's why you want to ask this first question: what is your cancellation policy? And that means if the tech cancels, will the company send you a replacement tech? It's very important, because some companies don't mention that, or some companies will say, we don't send anything. If he cancels or she cancels, then you know what, let it be. You don't want to be with this company, because if they cancel a lot, guess what, your child is not getting services of any kind, right? So ask them for cancellation policy. Now, next question you want to ask if your BCBA is virtual or hands-on. If it's virtual, forget it. You want the one that would come to your house and will be coaching the tech to work with your child, and will be actually writing a treatment plan, and you can engage with them, ask them questions. You do want that BCBA on site. Virtual is just not gonna do, okay? Next is you want to check company review, and I would recommend to go on indeed.com and see what actually employees say about that company, not necessarily parents, because it's very important what employees have to say about the company. If it's a healthy environment, if they like that company, more likely you're gonna benefit from that too, because these employees, they have to be happy before that door opens and they walked in to see you, right? So look at that feedback, or maybe ask around if it's a smaller company and there is not enough feedback. But yeah, that's very important to see what employees say themselves about that company, because you want stability. And if they're not happy, they're gonna walk away, and you're gonna get tech after tech after tech, parent after parent after parent. The time lost, the baby did not learn anything. Okay, that's where that goes. Now, what do you want to ask your technician? You're gonna ask them 3 questions: experience, RBT license, and time with the company. It's important because all 3 will determine that tech stability, how long they're gonna be working with your child, and patience. And that's very important for the tech to have patience, because they're working with children that are kind of hard, hard to teach. Do they have that patience? So all these three things, again, experience, RBT license, and time, will indicate why RBT license, because they have to work for a little bit before they get that license. So that's patience. Okay, I'm just going back and forth, so but you know, it's morning and everything. So another important question to ask the company, you want to ask them first, send me a tech that lives next to my residence or next to my house. Ask the tech too, how far do they live from you, because sometimes companies just don't give you that answer. They just put you whoever's available. Why is this important? Because again, they will be canceling, they will be late, and then they have to leave early because they've got another case to go to. It's very important that they're somewhere close to you, and I know that, okay? I do know that. Once they late for your case, they still have to leave to another case, and you're going to be short of time. So convenience at this point, convenience. So you do want to ask them how far do they live from your home. Now, next you want to observe your technician, how they enter your house. Do they have a luggage? Do they have a backpack? Or they just come in with the phone? That's very important, because most parents, when they just start AB, they don't have any resources. Like my techs, they would come in and I had everything for them, so I didn't care about the luggage. But the parents that don't have resources, they want to look for that, what ABA technician brings alone. If there is no bag, well, more likely there's going to be nothing to learn, right? Because they need to use visual aid, you know, they need to use toys and cards. And if they come empty-headed, I mean, how are they going to teach? Are they going to be just sitting, pairing up? Again, this is a medical therapy, and it's paid by health insurance. So that's why you want them to come and bring their resources. And my company, for example, they didn't have any resources, and I actually even made some resources myself for those techs that work with my child, so they can take it to other cases. So that's how the levels, right, how that could go. But hopefully they come in and they have something with them other than their phone. Now you want to observe your tech and inform them of your own phone policy. You want to put this in place right away and say, look, I allow to have your personal phone for emergencies only. That would be BCBA calling, office calling, family members calling, something like that. And that's when they should have the phone available to them, but nothing more than that. You don't want them to use that phone when you're somewhere outside of the house and they just pull that phone and they spend time on the phone instead of working with your child. That's why you want to put this in place right away and be firm. You're not going to be using that phone of yours while you're here with my child. It's important, because they do that, especially younger generation. They have these phones, and one of them actually even told me, I said, you shouldn't be using your phone, you should be teaching my child. And she said, well, I'm so sorry, I'm that generation, you know, where it attached to phones now, and you know, that's not what they get paid for, right? So, and you want them to be working with your child, right? So you want to put that in place right away. No personal phone use unless it's emergency or family emergency. Okay. Now you do want to observe them, what they do, and with your child, if they play, or you know, if they work. And I will give you my example. Like I had a technician that I like very much, and I trusted her very much, and she was with us like for about a year or two, and then I noticed that every time I pass him by, she tells Brandon like 2 more minutes, 2 more minutes, 1 more minute, basically indicating that he's gonna go back to work. But every time I would pass by, it was just that 2 minutes, 2 minutes. So she didn't really work with him. She stopped working with him, you know, because it was always just, you know, 2 more minutes and a break, and then you're gonna have to go to work. And then I put the camera on and I saw what I needed to see. So you want to be around, you want to be engaged, you want to be watching them to make sure that the time they come in, they actually spend solely on your child. That's very important. Let's see. with the beginners of ABA, it's a typical to see when they do the session, and that, you know, like the segments, and that segment is shorter than the break, because that's when child get adjusted. And let's say if the session is 3 minutes, the break would be 5 minutes. So make sure that ratio eventually changes to where they give longer session and shorter breaks, because that means if that never changes, that, you know, they're gonna keep extending these breaks too. You know, it's just human nature. The child is going steaming, and while they just on the break, and they tell you 2 more minutes, 2 more minutes. I had one ABA tech that I left the house and I put the camera on, and I saw her. She slept on my sofa for 3 hours because she knew I wasn't home. Right, she was just sleeping on the sofa. And then when the supervisor came in and I showed her that video, it's like, what is going on? She's like, where's Brandon? She said. It's like, well, Brandon is steaming in another room while she's sleeping on the sofa. Yeah, so think about this. Remember that you do want to be watching them, and you want to watch them so they don't even know you're watching. This is where we are now, you know. And they taking that time away. They don't care. Some of them, okay, but some of them can be like that, like what I had, where, you know, they just don't care, that they practically stealing time from your child, which is very critical, you know. So watch them, record them. Let's see. Those breaks, again, going back to breaks, when they release your child for the break, you want to make sure that they take data during that break, because they have to report to BCBA. Make sure they take in data during those breaks and not sitting on their phone because the child has a break. No, because then this is what's going to happen next. Last 15 minutes they reserve the time to take that data and make their notes. This is not how that should be, actually, and this is a Medicaid fraud, and it's stealing time from your child, because Medicaid pays for the hands-on, and these 15-minute session notes should be taken in between, not in addition to, because they taking your time from that child. Instead of getting an hour therapy, they're gonna get only 45 plus all these breaks. You know, how much therapy did he get in general, especially if the session is shorter than the break? So they should not be taking, and I know that, they should not be taking data and notes at your child's expense at the end of the session. Because some companies, like in my case, they were training techs to take notes in the end of the session, and a supervisor was doing that too, and this is not allowed. This is, like I said, you have to tell them you take your notes in between sessions. Again, I just know. Okay, and let's see. So one other thing is very important is you want all these ABA techs and teachers and occupational therapists, you want them to be all on the same page. They work separately. You know, you take him to therapy speech, you take him to OT speech, you take him to school, and everyone is, there's miscommunication. They do not communicate to each other. This is why you want to engage your tech, to bring them once to observe occupational therapy, exchange phone numbers, take him to speech therapy, exchange numbers. The tech watches what OT does. OT will share experience, so they actually get positive feedback. They're learning, and they know what the OT does or the speech does. They carry it over. They incorporate that in their own sessions. And most importantly is, if your children in school, you want to bring that tech, and maybe even BCBA, actually, because schools are very tough. They don't want you there. They don't want ABA people there whatsoever. And good luck with that, because, you know, it took me several months to get BCBA to observe Brendan in the classroom environment. And the teacher was thankful, but the school wasn't, because teacher wanted to learn from BCBA, and they would not let me, that BCBA, to let her in. I had to fight for that, like for almost like 3 months before I got her in to see. And so she got that data, because that's a different environment, and this is an environment where they spend more time So why not? But the schools are very resistant. They don't want anybody from outside to come in. Again, it's very important to have them all engaged and work with your child, because they all can share outside of their work if they're willing to. What else I did not cover? Let's see. You do want to ask permission to record their sessions with your tags, because it's in my case, I was, I did ask, and I recorded the session, and then that tag left on maternity. I've got a substitute tag, and when I show some of my videos, and was early intervention for my child, we lost a year when he was 3 to 4. This is very critical, because from 2 to 5, you have to set up everything in place, and I lost that whole year because my ABA tech was unqualified. She did not know what the ABA was about. She didn't really teach much, and when I showed that videos to the another one, the one that came to substitute, she said to me, "There's no ABA." I was in shock, and first thing came to my mind, I just lost a whole full year of intense intervention that my child required. Yeah, so like I said, it's very, very important to make sure that you record that. And if you don't know who to show this, you can probably ask me. I'll tell you exactly if there is ABA going on or not, because I know. Now I do, but back then I didn't. So I lost the whole year, and I'm trying to help you to prevent that from happening, because that time 2 to 5 is very, very critical. And if you lost it, more likely you will have difficulties. That's why my child doesn't really talk that clearly, because I lost the whole year on that person who I thought was supposed to provide the therapy. Okay, now if you have a lot of hours, like 20, let's say, oftentimes companies will not even assign case to one tag, but you actually want to have only one tag, because I noticed in my experience that if I sometimes even had 3 tags, and none of them communicate because they're busy. They go from place to place, they drive, then they come home, they have family, they don't think about your children there, and they're not supposed to. But they also don't share information about your child. So if you have like 5 goals, one is working on 2, the other one works on 3, they may not even share that information. So how do they know? I've seen one tech coming in and doing only one goal, and that's because he wanted to be on the phone because that was easiest, and I recorded that one too. So you do want to make sure that you have only one person that knows everything, and basically coming in, working, that's where she left, and so she comes back and picks it up from where she left. Because when you have 2 people coming in that don't even talk among each other, don't share that information, guess what? Another delay, right? So you do want to have preferably one tech on your case, and you always want to keep in touch with PCBA. You always want to give your feedback. So you want to ask questions, you want to engage with them, you want to provide your feedback to them, and sometimes that's where I was. You want to tell them, this is what I want you to teach my child, and they need to figure out how to teach, how to get to a certain level. So your feedback extremely important. Don't rely like heavily on them, because if you I remember with the school system, they wanted to teach my child letter sounds for like 10 years. I calculated if it's 7 sounds a year, just guess what? By the 8th grade, he would learn letter sounds. Can you believe that? Yeah, they make it easy for themselves. ABA company is a little bit better than schools, but at the same time, it's also a challenge. So if you want your child to do potty training or to do, even eye contact, yeah, you kind of want them to challenge themselves and address what you think your child may need, because you're the parent here and you're in charge. You're the client here and you pay them, so they have to follow what you say. This is very important. So don't rely heavily on them. Ask them questions, make propositions, say, I want my child to learn this, and that, and they're supposed to figure out, plan and change that and address that. And you also have to follow if the child progresses of any, just because we oftentimes we get in texts that don't know ABA, they come from the street because they just need a job, right? And they don't have experience. And then parents think, well, ABA doesn't work. ABA does work, but it has to be provided by qualified people. And nowadays, again, this is why I don't do this anymore. I provide my own therapy to my child. I think I covered everything. It's a 20-minute video now, looks like. But again, engage, watch, record, demand, learn from them if they're good. And again, I'm still alive and I'm still here to help. If you have questions about do I even get the quality therapy, you can probably ask me. I will try to answer that, because I already know. I know a lot more than I can just say in 20 minutes. Okay, I talk to you soon. I hope that's helpful.